Om Asato Ma Sadagamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityor Ma Mritam Gamaya Avir Avir Maedhi Rudrayate Dakshinam Mukham Te Namam Pahinityam. Om, lead us from the unreal to the real. Lead us from darkness unto light. Lead us from death to immortality. Reach us through and through ourself, and evermore protect us from ignorance by thy sweet, compassionate face. Let us sit quietly a few moments and meditate on the Supreme Spirit in any way we please. Om Bhadrang Karnevi Shrunuyama Devaha Bhadram Pashyemakshabhiryajatraha Sthirairangae Estushuvagam Sastanubhi Vyashema Deva Hitai Yadayuhu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May we hear with our ears what is auspicious. May we see with our eyes what is auspicious. May we enjoy with strong limbs and bodies the life allotted to us. Om, peace, peace, peace be unto us all. Spiritual qualities. So in a series of talks, there will be different spiritual qualities will be raised and discussed. So today, devotion. Devotion is generally called Bhakti in Sanskrit. And the definitions, some of the definitions of devotion are very simple. There's one devotion definition given by the sage Narada. And his definition is, the sage Narada is of the opinion that the essential characteristics of bhakti or devotion are the consecration of all activities by complete self-surrender to him, that is, to the divine reality, and extreme anguish if that reality were to be forgotten. So concentration of all activities by complete surrender to God or to the Spirit, and extreme anguish if it were to be forgotten. So there's a positive aspect, there's a negative aspect. The positive aspect is extreme concentration, extreme devotion to what? That is now the big question. And not only concentration, but also extreme anguish if that were forgotten or if that concentration were interrupted. It's called one-pointedness of mind. And that is what we struggle year after year to try to achieve in one form or another. Sri Ramakrishna, who is the inspiration for this society, for this movement, for this order, he felt that the bhakti, according to Narada, was the suitable or a suitable spiritual path for this age. So that definition of bhakti according to Narada becomes very important because of Sri Ramakrishna's very considered opinion about it. So the essential characteristics of devotion are consecration of all activities to that reality. That's the positive aspect. Complete self-surrender to that, to God, to the Spirit, whatever name you give to the ideal, and extreme anguish if it were to be forgotten. extreme anguish of that type we can feel for certain regular things, ordinary things, something very precious to us. If we've forgotten it or if we've lost it, we become very anxious. But how often do we become so terribly disturbed because for a few minutes I forgot to think of God. I forgot to think of the spiritual ideal. I forgot to think of that ultimate reality. Oh, the last few minutes, my mind was drawn to so many other things and I forgot. We'll have it. Yes, I forgot. I should remember, but it won't be extreme. It won't be extreme anguish. So, I mean, that's just so that we're realistic. To be realistic about where we actually are. I mean, generally we have a fairly satisfactory opinion about where we are, what we're doing. We may be having difficulties. Maybe we forgot this little thing or that little thing, and we get some trouble in mind because of that. But extreme anguish, as it's defined here, extreme anguish, that is vyakulata. Parama vyakulata is the Sanskrit that is used. So it's defined in this way: Naradastu tad arpita kila acharata tad vismarane parama vyakulata. Vyakulata iti, yeah. So that is the challenge. How precious is that to us? If that becomes very important to us, if the spiritual ideal, the spiritual realization, becomes very real to us, very vivid, very important to us, this will come. That chagrin will come if we ever forget it. And that is a very precious gift if that is given to us. Why should you think it a gift if you get terribly anguished about something? Because that great anguish gives rise to a tremendous energy to dedicate ourselves anew to that spiritual ideal, because that is the one thing that usually we terribly lack. We are very much devoted to the things that we have to accomplish in this life, either in terms of our work or in terms of our family. These obligations are very central to us. But as we move on in life and reach the advanced years, reach old age, the question will become ever more insistent. What is it that is going to remain? We all know very well we're not going to be living forever. We are young, perhaps, and we have many decades ahead of us. That's wonderful. But our parents are there, our grandparents are there. This is all proof that people do get old. And then what have you got left? That is the big question. What have we got left? The things that we do ordinarily in life are very necessary, very helpful, very instructive, but they don't last forever. That is the meaning of the word renunciation. The realization that there is nothing in this universe, either physically or intellectually or psychologically or however you want to phrase it, There's nothing at all in this universe that is eternal. We may be great and have tremendous achievements and looking forward to further achievements, and that's all wonderful, that's necessary, that's highly to be sought after, to be practiced, to be praised, yes. But none of it is eternal. There will always have to come a time when we're faced with the fact that whatever it is that we have, whatever it is that we're in this world that we're devoted to, has an end. And that is not at all a sad thing. That's actually a wonderful thing. Can you imagine any particular thing in this world that you'd be terribly delighted if the thing were guaranteed to be eternal? No relationship, no human relationship would feel terribly wonderful if it was thought to be eternal. The greatness of human relationships is that we feel that they can mature into something more. If we felt that our human relationships were eternal at the level at which they are experienced at present, that would not be anything to be so joyful about. Eternity is a very long time. And we do get tired of things, even the most wonderful things we get tired of. We experience that in our lives. So everything that we experience now is wonderful and is to be practiced and cherished, and that is all true. But there is nothing at all in our experience that we would be very happy about if it never ended. That is a psychological point, that we know that things end. That gives us great grief on one side, but from a very deep spiritual standpoint, that is the key out of this limited experience into an unlimited, infinite, eternal, ever-satisfactory experience. An experience which does not change, an experience that doesn't grow old, it doesn't grow stale, it doesn't grow dissatisfactory. None of our present experiences fall into that category. But the spiritual message is there is something in that category. There is something in this universe, there is something in this experience which does not end, which is eternally satisfactory. Yeah, haltingly, very haltingly, it's described in this scripture and that scripture. It's described in this religion and in that religion. And it's haltingly described because the immensity of it, the grandeur of it, the wonder of it cannot be experienced, cannot be expressed. Avang manasagocharam is the way the Upanishad proclaims it. It is avang. Vak is speech. Manas is mind. Gochara means the range of. It is beyond the range of speech and mind. That is the divine reality that we're trying to understand, trying to experience. There is such a thing. That is the message of religion. What else does religion have to say? And what else other than religion can make that statement? You may talk about the universe is 14 billion years old, and So the stars, there are, someone printed a catalog of star clusters or constellations taken from a satellite outside the Earth's atmosphere, where you can really see the clarity of these constellations and star clusters. And some of them are millions of years away, millions of light years away. At the speed of light, you have to go millions of years before you reach those things. So this is as far as we can go in this world. But wherever we go, whatever we look at, whatever we discover, it has one common characteristic. It has come into existence, it is surviving for some time and experiencing a glorious existence for some time, then it will decay and it will disappear. There is only one thing that does not share that, and that is what religion hints at. Religion cannot describe it either. Avang Manasagochara means it is beyond the range of the mind, but it can be experienced. It isn't that it is something that there is you experiencing the divine reality. The way it's expressed is you feel that there is only that divine reality. There is no limited entity, and that the very nature of each one of us is an infinite, unlimited divine reality. When we become aware of that, Aham Brahmasmi, one of the ancient Upanishads, describes it this way: I am Brahman. That you have that feeling, that not only feeling, it's beyond what one would call a realization. The scriptures are hinting at it, but cannot really describe it. But there is such a thing. In everything that changes, at the heart of everything that changes, there is something which has never come into existence. And it has never been created, and therefore it can never be destroyed. It is the absolute substance, reality. However, words cannot describe it. The scriptures hesitate to make any definite statements. And the statements that the scriptures are made about it are just pointers. It's like you're trying to show someone a very faint star. I've tried to do that at Olima because there's one star of all the stars in the heavens that I can find. It's the only star I can identify. Of course, there's Cassiopeia and all sorts of other constellations, but there's one star that is important, and that is the North Star. Because the North Star is part of the Big Dipper, and if you go from there a certain distance along the Big Dipper, you can tell where where north is and so forth. In other words, it allows you to locate yourself at night. But the significance of that North Star is that it doesn't move. If you hold a camera up to the night sky centered on that North Star, and you leave the shutter open for some time, when you develop the picture, you find streaks. Each star has made a circular streak, except one. That is the North Star. It does not move. This is the analogy that we're trying to use to indicate that reality that we're talking about, that divine principle. This is the reality that is at the background, that is the basis, that is the substance beneath every perception. Pratibodha viditam. In every perception we perceive two things. We perceive something exterior, like a building or a person or an animal, we perceive something that is changeable. The building may not change so fast, but the building was not there at some decades or centuries back, and some decades or centuries hence that building again will be gone. So every perception is a perception of two things. One, what appears to us on the surface or is implied by what we see on the surface. And another is the reality upon which that projection is projected. So where is God? The answer is, where is God not? Everything we're seeing is a perception of God. Oh, really? Really? I don't see that. I see only physical things, and some of them are beautiful, some of them are terrible. But the screen on which those beautiful and terrible things are perceived is unmoving, unchanging, unchangeable. That is to be the source of our devotion. Devotion, spiritual qualities, this is supposed to be a discussion about devotion. So the ultimate devotion was defined by Shankaracharya, one's own nature, devotion to one's own reality, one's own inner nature. That sounds very selfish, being, very limited, very narrow, devotion to my own inner nature. What kind of devotion is that? The point is our own inner nature is that infinite, unchanging, unchangeable reality. That is the one thing we have to get into our consciousness, into our thought processes, into our feelings, not just as an idea, but as a feeling of the truth that there is a truth there. Of course, eventually the prescribed meditation, karma yoga, bhakti yoga, raja yoga, jnana yoga, all these yogas, to really experience that, okay, fine. But even without really experiencing it, you can feel the reality of it. Not through thought, oh yes, it's logical that it should be like that, but you can feel the fact, yes, it is true, I do feel that it must be true. It's a much more interior feeling. It's not just a thought or an argument, but it's actually a feeling that there is such a thing. There is a reality. You can't prove it, you can't exactly describe it, but you know that there is something true there. One example that has been given or can be adduced is that, for instance, if suppose you're in a room, you enter a room, and say there are 5 ladies are sitting in the room and talking and all of that. You come into that room. You have never seen, at least you're not aware that you're going to see someone that you recognize. 4 of those ladies you've never seen before. The 5th one is your mother. Now, from the exterior, they all look, quite similar, quite, nothing really terribly, fundamentally different about them. But one of them is your mother. Why is that one a particular, arouse in you particular feelings of, depending on your relationship with your mother, feelings of great love, of great gratitude, of this and that. What is it about that person that aroused that? Not the appearance, because there's nothing different. All 5 of them were significant, had no significant departure in terms of appearance. But something else stirs you on the inside and you say, yes, that is my mother. So in that same sense, we can actually also sense the existence of God. Not because we actually have traditionally what could be called an experience of God, but we have a feeling for that which evolves in us, or which is aroused in us by the thought of God, that just permeates us, that just thrills us and pervades us. It may come in the beginning, it may come slowly, it may be just very faint, but when you think of God or a great soul, a great saint, a representative of the infinite, say you think of Sri Ramakrishna, you think of Jesus, you think of Buddha. There are many, especially in some of the heavily Christian countries, there is that tremendous feeling of adoration for the Virgin Mary, adoration for Jesus. They will go around, there'll be churches and cathedrals, and they will do the things they do in India also. But some of them will roll on the ground, and some of them will, so many different ways of expressing their devotion. Now, what is it that brings that about? That is the feeling that is aroused in us. That is the feeling of elevation we get from thinking, from considering, from deeply pondering the reality of that. See, because in our ordinary experience, we see the reality, we see the reality of things, and we see the reality of ideas. And all of that is seen really in our minds, through our head, you could say. It goes through the brain. We're thinking, and we have a relationship with people on a thinking basis. But there is a relationship with some people that we have that's not through the brain, it's through the heart. That is what is being referred to here. Now that, right now, it's a relationship perhaps to a father, mother, a friend, a brother, sister. That is wonderful. But that same relationship can also be had with God. In fact, there are 5 traditional relationships in some of the devotional practices in India. You can think of God as a parent. You can think of God as your child. You can think of God as your sweetheart, your husband or wife, in that same quality of relationship that you have with a special person like that. That same quality of relationship can be achieved through to the divine reality, to God. And that is devotion. We're talking about spiritual qualities. This is the quality of devotion. And it comes not because you've seen that person or that being or that reality, but because there is something in each one of us which is infinite and divine, and which is of God. Some religions call it the soul, but what the soul is, if you ask in the definition, it's not very clear how they describe the soul, or what they think the soul is. But each religion has its own conception of that. So this is the thing, that unless we acquire a connection with something beyond this universe. What they actually said is, unless you obtain that connection, you will have to come again and again until that connection is actually established. So the thing is that it isn't that it's something that is, you have made a decision that you're going to establish that connection. That's wonderful. If you can do that, and if we follow the different advice that's given in different religions, that's wonderful. We do that. We can obtain that. We can obtain a little taste of that, more of it, more of that, increasing, until finally we're able to see that divine reality. So that is the purpose of devotion. That is the purpose of all spiritual practices. Why do we do work? We do work, of course, for ordinary purposes. We need money in order to live in this world, in order to accomplish certain things. Not only money, but we also need a certain self-fulfillment. There's something within us that demands, there are tendencies within us that demand fulfillment, abilities that urge us on and demand fulfillment. You know, all these things are there, but the point is, in the midst of everything else we do, and actually at the heart of everything else we do, there is within us, whether we recognize it or not at this time, eventually we will recognize it. What is there within us is this idea that God is a reality. There is something beyond this universe. And that is what it's extremely important that we establish a connection with that. And that is devotion. That is the beginning of devotion. That is how everyone starts. At first it's just theoretical, and so what we try to do is to develop it to such a way that we can actually feel, is there such a being, is there such a reality? And slowly we try, by following the footsteps of our predecessors, by following the prescriptions of the people who have written the scriptures, have written the prayers, and written all the devotional documents. In all the religions, something is done, something develops within us. If nothing developed within us, then we could say, well, it's just an exercise, it doesn't matter much. But inside each one of us, not only does the infinite and eternal reality abide at the very core of our being, but also there are derivations, you could say, of that infinite and eternal reality. Say, saints, beings who have experienced that divine reality, beings who have become one with that which does not go away. If someone has actually fully experienced that reality, their body may go away, their mind may not function, but within that being, the reality is something definite, is something tangible, is something that is real to them. So this is not something that is unusual. It's not something that's very far from any of us. Every one of us has within themselves this infinite, golden, extreme golden sweetness, you could say. This is the conclusion of every religion, that it isn't something that you get from the outside. The outside may spur you to look within. The outside may challenge you. The outside may facilitate the inner quest. But the reality is already within us. We're not paying attention to it, that's all. So the message of religion, whatever you do, devotion is just one of the ways. Selfless work is another way. Through selfless work, we're able to, whatever reduces our dependence on that within us which is limited, whatever expands our horizons in any way, physically, mentally, intellectually, whatever expands our horizons, must expand that to the infinite, must be the beginning of a process that can end only when it is totally, when our horizon has, you could say, if a horizon can disappear, if has totally disappeared, has gone to infinity, it encompasses the totality. We have that possibility within us. This is what the scriptures proclaim. Aham Brahmasmi, that is an absolutely fantastic statement. I am Brahman. What is Brahman? Brahman is that infinite reality that is beyond name and all names. It's the substratum of everything. It's the source of everything. It's the background of everything. It's the reality that powers everything. It is what is described as the divine reality, as God, as the knowers of God, the infinite. It is that aspect, the spiritual aspect of existence. And that is the fundamental reality that is at the basis of all non-spiritual things also. Every perception in this universe is a perception of something that is either finite on a physical level, or it's infinite as thought is infinite. So it's either physical or it's mental. Every perception refers to something that's a physical entity or a psychological entity. But the thing that makes the perception possible is consciousness. And that consciousness is neither physical nor psychological. It is fundamental, it is original, it is unchanging and unchangeable. So within our experience of everything, within every experience, at the basis of every experience, there's a reality which is unchanging and unchangeable, which is the total satisfaction, which is the foundation of everything. That is why from every experience translated into a yoga becomes a pathway to experiencing that. Karma yoga, you do actions. There is a way of doing actions by concentration, by dedication. According to the practices of karma yoga, there's a way of transforming that into a pathway to perceive that reality. We love, we are overjoyed, we are friendship, love. That devotion itself is a pathway, as the sage Narada described, that Sri Ramakrishna referred to as the gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. In great detail, Sri Ramakrishna in his conversations with his disciples explain those paths. Philosophy, the philosophical approach to reality. What is the fundamental conception of existence? All of that will lead again to that same. There is no human activity that does not, in some fashion, when it is purified, when it is perfected, there's no human activity that cannot be used to experience that which does not change, which is at the heart of every experience. And devotion is you could say, is one of the main entry points into that. Because devotion comes to us very naturally. We have devotion to our parents, we have devotion to our children, we have devotion to our friends, we have devotion to our country, we have devotion to our philosophy, we have devotion to our profession. Devotion is a very natural experience or expression of in human life. That devotion, when turned toward God, becomes a pathway to experiencing this. So concentration is necessary for everything that we do. And that concentration, when it is practiced in terms of what the sage Patanjali describes in the Yoga Sutras, Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha, that yoga is what? Yoga is the control of the waves of the functions of the mind. When the mind becomes very still and very quiet, that reality manifests itself. We don't have to create God. That is one wonderful thing. You know, this is, if we had to, somebody said, well, yeah, it's wonderful, but you have to create this, it's not in existence. That would be a great challenge, an impossible challenge. But all of that is immediately available. By refining what is immediately available, that which is at the heart of every reality can be experienced. That is the message of the yogas. That is the message of the sages. The subject for next Sunday is Girish Chandra Ghosh, the story of a spiritual transformation. This is the first part of a series of spiritual talks by Swami Vedananda. On Sunday evenings, there is an online class at 6 p.m. on Patanjali's Yoga Sutras. The Zoom and YouTube links are available on our website's homepage, as well as in the monthly email bulletin. On Wednesday evenings, we have Vespers with meditation at 7:30 p.m. in this auditorium. On Friday evenings, a scripture class is held at the Old Temple at 7:30 in the evening. Please use the auditorium entrance on Filbert Street. The current text for study is the Bhagavad Gita, and the class will also continue to be streamed. At present, the bookshop and the library remain closed, and childcare is still not currently available during lectures. Your cooperation in being fully vaccinated, wearing a mask, and maintaining 6 feet of distance is greatly appreciated. If you would like to make an offering, a collection plate will be available on the cart at the door as you exit. There is also a mounted offering box near the auditorium door in the foyer. You and your friends are cordially invited to attend all of our services. Om Yau Shanti Antariksham Shanti Prithivi Shanti Apo Shanti Roshadaya Shanti Vanaspataya Shanti Vishwe Deva Shanti Brahma Shanti Sarvam Shanti Shanti Reva Shanti Sama Shanti Redhi Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om, peace is in heaven. Peace is in the sky, on the earth, and in the waters. The herbs, the plants, and the trees are full of peace. The gods are peaceful. Everything in the universe is pervaded by peace. May that infinite, universal peace enter our soul and being. Om, peace, peace. Peace be unto us all.